being here this evening. For those that don't know, my name is Kevin Sweet. I'm the town administrator. Again, given the turnout, it's an exciting, anticipated project, and I'm glad you're all able to be here this evening. Couple of housekeeping items before we get started. Thank you. There's restrooms right out between these lower things. They'll lead you right back out to the main hallway where you can find restrooms. Take note of the 2 emergency exits down below and the one up top. Also, for folks, so they know, tonight's presentation is being broadcasted live. It is also being recorded and will be played on the WAVM channels at future dates as well. Also, we did run out of copies of tonight's presentation, so it will be posted on the town's website, on the Planning Division's website, specific to the 129 Parker Street project page. You'll be able to find that. But they are going to cover everything that you have in front of you as far as those that were able to get handouts will be presented this evening. The agenda, we're going to cover the purpose of the meeting, the reason for zoning change, history of the property, the original, brief history of the property with the original NBOD, the memorandum of agreement, some interchange and use as a development agreement, and the process and steps as to where we are, and then give an overview sort of what's happened since 2013, which is really more of the focus for this evening's meeting is what have we been doing over the last 18 months or so. Brief overview, discussion on some of the zoning changes that we'll highlight for you, the 2013 versus the 2016 developer proposals, quite a separation, a little bit of a highlight as to what's different from 13 versus today. And then we're going to ask Capital Group to present their presentation, and then if folks could just hold questions and answers until both presentations are made. We're going to allow ample time at the end for questions and answers. There's 2 wireless mics that will be made available, and we'll be able to bring that up to you for questions. So at this time, I'd like to introduce and transfer it over to our Board of Selectmen Chairman, Chris De Silva, who will run through the Board of Selectmen's presentation. Again, on behalf of the entire Board of Selectmen and town staff, thank you for being here this evening. Chris?
Thank you. Hello? This one's working. If I lose my voice a little bit, I apologize in advance. I've been sick for a few days, but I didn't want to miss this. As Kevin said, this is a presentation that the Board of Selectmen are sponsoring. We thought it was important to share as much information as we have with you today in advance of the special town meeting in January, and give everybody a chance to ask their questions and get the answers to the questions before we would get to that point. And that was so that's the basic purpose of the meeting, is to provide a brief copy of the zoning history. We'll detail the zoning and the Board of Selectmen that we recommend, describe the benefits to the community, and then we'll answer your questions at the end ourselves, and the Capital Group are here, so we'll answer all the questions from both sides at the end for anyone that has any questions. So the reason for the zoning change, the current NBOD, the Neighborhood Business Overlay District, anticipated the continued existence and productive use of a 400,000 square foot office building which no longer exists. They took out, as you all know, they took out the 2 larger buildings that were on the property some time ago, so that has changed the zoning needs. And then we'll generalize the zoning for future uses, and we'll update the town desired zoning uses. The history of the property, as you all know, at one time it was the Digital Office Park, and then in 2009 the NBOD was approved to support a proposal from John Walter. And there's currently a memorandum of agreement which was signed and runs with the property. The current MOA is in force, and the contract provides for financial contribution to Maynard of $1 million plus other mitigations, and the zoning, the industrial zoning within the NBOD. The process steps that we're following are a January 11th, 2016 special meeting. We're hoping for the NBOD changes, and the special town meeting vote will require a 2/3 vote. And then we're also, at the same time that we're working on the zoning changes. The town council, along with the council for the Capital Group, are working on revising the memorandum of agreement because the old one is quite old, and we're working on a new agreement that provides more mitigation for the town, and will be actually a benefit to the town in the long run to revise the MOA. So there is a concept plan and a comprehensive sign plan that's going to take place. Those things are both coming. They're both going to be at future town meetings, and they will be, when they do come, they'll both require simple town majority votes. So the zoning change is 2/3. The other two pieces of the project and process are both simple majority. And then we'll have the site plans, and the special permits will be under the purview of the planning board. So, I can't see that. So, in May of 2013, the project failed at a vote. And then in August and September in 2013, there were several public visioning sessions. And in October 13th, there was an ad hoc committee that was appointed by the Board of Selectmen. And in March of 2014, the Selectmen received the ad hoc committee recommendations in their report, which we still have and we've used as a guide going forward. And then in July 2014 to the present, the town has a special counsel, John Whitten, who's actually unable to be with us tonight. And so our special counsel, John Whitten, and the board and the town administrator and the assistant town administrator have been meeting with the developer to move the process along. And then in November of 2014, the Board of Selectmen requested of the Planning Board a review and to make recommendations of potential zoning changes to the MBOD. And then last December, the ad hoc committee for 129 Parker, we met with them. We discussed the goals and the intent of the ad hoc committee and the recommendations with town staff and the Board of Selectmen in a meeting we held in Town Hall. And in January, we had an informational meeting with key individuals involved with various aspects on the Parker Street project to provide a contextual background for town staff. And basically that was a meeting held in the lower level of Town Hall, and some of the past selectmen and past people from Maynard that were involved in the project kind of gave us, the newer board members and newer people to the project, a history from their perspective as to what had happened in the past. In March of 2015, the Capital Group presented the board with some conceptual plans, raw plans, but what their new concept is as opposed to what their old concept was. And then between April and May, RKG Associates was hired by the town to provide financial impact and do an analysis for that conceptual plan that was proposed in March. The projected annual impact is an increase of $1.6 million in revenue and $766,000 in costs, with an additional $1 million in one-time fees anticipated to the benefit of the town. Last June, we held a special meeting to sort of determine the next steps for the board. We, with 129, we reached agreement on the number of residential units, which I believe is 175. Correct, 175, and I think the number was 258 bedrooms and 175 units. And then we had RKG go back and revise the fiscal impact based on that number of units. And then in June, the planning board delivered their recommendations for the MBOD changes, and that included revised definitions and uses. In October, the Capital Group presented plans to us, to the planning board, and they met with the planning board to discuss the MBOD changes. And then in November, we sponsored the warrant article with potential NBOD zoning amendments for special town meeting, and the planning board has recommended the approval of the article. And we continue through December. We're continuing today to negotiate with the developer on the memorandum of agreement and the town meeting preparation, and this public hearing, not that it's a hearing, but public information session. And as well, if you've seen there's some information coming from the developer, they're going to hold some informational sessions going forward. These are the zoning changes that we're suggesting as a board. The current MOA is 100 residential units. We're proposing 175. The 180 is a number that anything over 175 will be affordable housing, and that will fall in line with some needs that we have in town to get our affordable housing stock at a higher level. The current number of bedrooms is 200. We're actually looking for 258, not 250. The retail space has changed from 175,000 square feet to 310. The existing office space was 450,000, but that's not there anymore, so that number is unavailable. Under the current rules, there was unlimited drive-throughs, but with special permits, and now there's a total allowable of 4, with only 2 for fast foods max, and it's all by special permit as well. The current building height is at 40 feet, and the proposed is for the residential and continual care 50, and the feet are limited to 300 and 1,000 feet away from the property line. So if anything that's 50 feet in height will be at least 300 and 1,000 feet from the property lines. It's 1,000 feet from Parker Street and 300 feet in from the rest of the property lines on the property. And then there were no plans in the current MOA for assisted living, and now there's a plan in place that has an inclusion of assisted living and continual care, healthcare uses. In the comparisons between the proposals of 2013 and 2016, the non-residential square feet in 2013 was 328. It is now at 310. Apartments, they had hoped for 250. We're now down at 175 with 17 affordable. If anything increases above 175, it will be in affordable, up to a max of 180 units. And the prior development was requesting 400 bedrooms. We're now at 258. Traffic, there was 1 intersection. There will now be 7. The financial contribution to the town in 2013, NA for that one, Kevin? So it's $1 million financial contribution to the town. Okay. All right, so that's the minimum, is $1 million contribution to the town. Is it some water and sewer mitigation? And there are some facilities that the in PK2 that there's some facilities that the ad hoc didn't recommend, and some opportunities there that weren't part of it for PK2. And the independent living, it's 140 suites, and Bob will talk more about that when the developer speaks. And the net benefit to the town is $850,000 annually less the current taxes, and the one-time permit fees to the town will be approximately $1 million. And the other benefits of the personal property, the auto excise taxes, and the meals taxes that the town will see the benefits of as a result of the project. Bob? Ladies and gentlemen, this is Robert DePietri from Capital Group, and he's going to do their portion of the presentation. Everybody hear Kevin? Huh? Not at home. So what was it? Today's memorandum agreement actually
Selectman De Silva pointed out, includes the original memorandum of agreement, which includes a financial contribution of $1 million cash to the town. The 2013 project, there was no cash paid to the town. All of the discussion around the development agreement was focused on the PK2 building. So just to clarify, that cash contribution was the same amount, though, with the original Walters, as I said, the agreement that's in effect and in place today. And yeah, that'll be the minimum the town would receive. And you know, as I said, we're still continuing actively negotiating. So just wanted to clarify that.
Okay. Should the town of Maynard voters approve the requested MBOD amendments at the January 11, 2016 special town meeting, Capital Group will bring forward a project proposal consistent with the findings of the 2014 129 Parker Street Ad Hoc Committee recommendations dated March 12, 2014. That project will include the following components: a first-class supermarket, a senior independent living facility, an urgent care medical center, multifamily residential housing, a health club, general retail and personal services establishments, and restaurants, both full service and fast casual. The 129 Parker Street site formerly contained 3 buildings totaling over 550,000 square feet, consisting of 1- and 2-story buildings, along with a helicopter pad and over 2,000 parking spaces, which were all used by Digital Equipment Corporation. At one point, the property was generating over $450,000 a year in real estate taxes. Today, only a 50,000 square foot PK2 building remains, and the property generates less than $100,000 a year in real estate taxes. In the 3.5 years Capital Group has been involved with the 129 Parker Street property, one of the major concerns of town residents has been the traffic impact a proposed project would have on the neighborhoods surrounding the property and roadways and intersections in the general vicinity of the property. Back in 2006, a development agreement was negotiated with the previous developer outlining an extensive series of traffic improvements to be completed on Parker Street in front of the property, as well as 6 other intersections in Maynard. The front door improvements include an installation of a fully signalized intersection and widening of Parker Street along our property frontage. Other off-site improvements include improvements to the Route 117 and 27 intersection. And all those will be detailed in the development agreement. Currently, the major tenants proposed for the development would be a Market 32 supermarket. Market 32 was Price Chopper, who back in 2009, when the previous plan approved, was going to be the grocery store tenant in the project. This is a new store concept. Those of you that were around back then and had a chance to see the building they had planned there, I think this is a substantial improvement over what was proposed back in 2009. The first Market 32 opened this fall in Sutton, Massachusetts, and has been very well received by shoppers and town residents. Again, this shows some different elevations of the building, front elevation, some side elevations. The front material that you see on the building is actually a wood front by the sign. They were actually wood panels. Market 32 will include a Starbucks within the building, drive-up pharmacy, very large prepared food section, similar to, I don't know if you've been to the Wegmans in Northborough, it's similar to that. These are just some photos of the interior of the store out in Sutton that were just recently taken. They also have a designated recycling center on the side of the building next to the pharmacy, along with other departments within the store that are normally found in a first-class supermarket. There's a drive-up pharmacy as well. This is some rear of the building. The next major component of the project, which was a recommendation, again, of the 129 Parker Street Ad Hoc Committee and a request of numerous Maynard residents, was to add a senior living component to the project. Hawthorne Senior Living, a developer of over 300 senior living facilities throughout the country, would like to build a 142-suite, 4-story independent living facility as part of the Parker Street development. This facility would serve 3 meals a day to its residents and include amenities such as a library, media room, arts and crafts room, dining room. As part of the facility, they would be proposing to build at 129 Parker Street, should the requested MBOD amendments pass in January. The suites being proposed in the independent living facility do not have full-service kitchens in the unit because they're serving their residents 3 meals a day. And again, here's some pictures of their existing facilities. There's the dining and the main lobby area of the building. Interior library, coffee lounge, and a movie theater. Also planned as part of the project is multifamily housing units. And from the last 3.5 years, the correct number of housing units has been a contentious issue throughout the 3.5 years that we've been involved with the project. The 129 Parker Street Ad Hoc Committee recommendation offered a unit count range of 150 to 250 units based on individual committee members' preferences. The report felt there would not be town support for a project that included the 250 units proposed in the 2013 MBOD amendment article, which was defeated. After numerous meetings last summer with the Board of Selectmen, a unit count of 175 units, with 17 of the units being designated affordable units, was arrived at. This compares to the 100 units currently allowed in the MBOD zoning district. Again, this just shows a potential building. What we're looking for is the ability to build one of these buildings as a 4-story building. 2 buildings that would be closest to Parker Street would be 3-story buildings, and the one building closest to the rear of the property, adjacent to the independent living facility, would be a 4-story building. Another major use component of the project that would be brought forth should the zoning pass would be general retail space, which would include such uses as a hardware store, health club, pet supply store, clothing stores, personal service establishments, and restaurants, both full and fast casual. We're also proposing the PK2 building will be taken down to the steel structure and rebuilt. And that building is proposed to have a health club located in it, as well as some other commercial uses, which are not definite yet, which could include medical, it could include some child care, pretty much a wide range of uses that building's going to be planned for. And that'll be all worked into the design of the entire project. A lot of questions, have come up over who are some, potential tenants for the project. And this is not a definitive list. This is some tenants that have expressed interest to date, include hardware, pet supplies, fitness, restaurants, supermarkets, medical, and there's probably 10 or 15 other tenants that aren't on this list. So this is not a complete list. And again, as Chris had said before, We're planning on having December 28th to 30th and January 4th to 8th from 3 to 7 p.m. At the site, there's going to be an office trailer on the site, and we'll be there available for anybody that has questions or would like to take a closer look at the site and what we're planning there, and also Saturday, January 9th from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Or if these times aren't convenient, just let us know, and we'll be happy to meet you at another time. Thank you.
Anyone that has questions, Zach, we'll get you a microphone and just, let us know where you live, and we'll start with the questions. What?
Commercial units planned on being rentals or condominiums?
Rentals.
All of them?
All of them are rentals. There's no plans right now for any condominiums on the property.
Hi, Joyce Crayley. You had mentioned that, obviously today there's one intersection into, you had mentioned there's one intersection today into 129 Parker Street that become like 7. How, it's a little confused on how you get 7 additional intersections in there.
On the traffic mitigation? Is that what you're asking about?
Well, I'm just wondering where the 6 additional intersections are. Are they within the complex, or is that like out onto Summer Street or Parker Street itself?
Yeah, these are outside the complex. All the traffic mitigation would be outside the project. At the main entrance, there'll be a new signalized intersection built there, and then the development agreement lists a series of 6 other intersections where where specific work was agreed to back in 2006 with the town.
So,
I can read
What
it
it-
if you want. I have it.
right.
Yeah.
We'll get those for you in a minute. They're just intersections throughout town. Ken?
I have it here.
Kevin, I have a question. Barbara O'Brien. One of our biggest challenges in town is that we have absolutely no public transportation. Where are you going to get workers? How are you going to draw people to this little town that has no public transportation?
To work at the site, at the businesses at the site?
And for them to live in apartments and get to work. Everyone doesn't own 2 cars or even 1 car.
I know a lot of like the major retailers, they work closely with the regional transportation authorities to come up with the means of getting their employees to work. I know another project we'll work on is out in Northborough at Northborough Crossing, and the Worcester Regional Transportation Group works closely with the tenants in that project to come up with a system to get employees to there. I don't know whether that would be available, in this area or not, but I'm pretty sure it's something that they'll be looking at pretty closely. Okay.
Just to expand on that, the town is actively continuing to work on our regional transportation system that we've had a agreement in place for some time. Right now, the focus has really been on combined regional dispatch service, but the intent is to build that out to a more robust regional transportation system called Crosstown Connect. That system, not in place necessarily today, but that would provide for a lot of that sort of last mile connectivity from the Acton commuter station. Hopefully, this project moves forward and gets built. We'll have the rail trail construction, which will start hopefully in the spring of '16. Some of those mechanisms that are there, but this region, particularly in Metro West, struggles with that sort of last mile connection in a lot of communities. It's not just Maynard, but the market analysis that's been done for our area shows that there's a significant need and demand for rental apartment housing and certainly the grocery store, whether we're looking, and I don't know their study analysis, but certainly, Maynard residents need a place to shop and hopefully spend money in town. But I would anticipate there'd be some abutting communities and somewhat of a regional draw as well. But yeah, we continue to work on the transportation system. It's not unique to Maynard. It's something within our region. Not only Crosstown Connect program, but we're part of the LRTA, the Lowell Regional Transportation. Did you want to answer that?
Yeah, so the intersections in question are the front door, which is Parker Street, entrance to the project. The second intersection is the intersection of Parker Street and 117. There's Great Road and Main Street, Parker Street and Old Marlboro Road, Marlboro Street and Old Marlboro Road, Great Road and Old Marlboro Road, and those are the streets that will that the developer will improve signage and access and that type of thing. Those are the intersections that they talk about mitigating the traffic on.
Yes, Parker Street.
Yeah, these three here.
All right, yeah, so Parker Street, Powder Mill Road, and Waltham Street, some upgrades to that intersection. Main Street, Acton Street, and Summer Street intersection as well. And then the Nason and Summer Street intersections. Those are all intersections that will become a part of this project.
Question up top?
Yeah, I have two questions. I came in late, so you may have answered them already. Any chance for a Market Basket or a Walmart kind of store coming in, to take some of the burden off of us taxpayers? And two, what was the second question?
Could you repeat that question?
Is there any chance of a Walmart or a Market Basket that is still coming into Parker Street? And my second question is, why do we need more condos, more apartments? That's it.
We did talk with Market Basket, and they haven't had an interest in locating a store in this location. They felt that they have this area covered with the stores that sort of surround the Maynard area, namely Hudson, Littleton, Westford, and the Waltham store. So they really didn't show much of an interest, in the project. Oh, yeah, we do have a supermarket that's coming, which is the Market 32 supermarket. We just feel the best, what's going to make the most successful project is a mixed-use project in that location. And that's including retail, commercial, and residential uses. And that's why we're proposing the apartments for the project.
Hi, my name's Betsy. I've lived in Maynard 3 years, and I'm really happy to call it home. Plan to stay here for a long time. I have to say I'm really, really frustrated with this project. There's the white elephant in the room that no one seems to be talking about in this meeting, which is what about the vacancies that we have in lovely downtown Maynard? It's a very walkable town. This is not something that most people in Maynard can walk to. I understand the need for more housing and a senior center, and I'm fine with all of those things, but we need to fill the vacancies. That should be the priority. And I also want to say that I am a very proud owner in the Aspet Village Co-op, and so we will have a supermarket in town. There will be that option. I encourage all of you to become owners if that kind of thing interests you. And we may be opening either next year or 2017. But so really, I guess this question's for Kevin, is what are you and the city council doing about getting more businesses in town? I've heard that the rents are ridiculous and that the landlords just don't care that they sit vacant. And I think that should be the focus, and not getting a Starbucks or, God forbid, another Dunkin' Donuts up there. It's the last thing we need. We need the kind of businesses that, you know, really stimulate the local economy, the mom and pop stores and restaurants.
Yeah, great points, great questions. I would say, you know, certainly economic development has been this is just one piece of the big picture, right? It's one component of the town's economic development. It's a big piece. It has a lot of history, but economic development focus goes much more than just this one site location. As you mentioned, the downtown and businesses that are down there. We've made it, the Board of Selectmen have made economic development a goal of theirs for the last 2 years. It's been a fiscal goal to focus on that. We've recently, a little over a year and a half now, have formed an economic development committee that's taken the big picture look at a lot of this stuff. Every day we frequently speak with folks about the downtown businesses. You alluded to a lot of it is somewhat out of our control. There's a lot of out-of-town property owners that control that space. You know, that for whatever reason we've had interest in with outside folks that have come in and have stopped at Town Hall first, have some great plans, but for whatever, out of our control, out of the town's control, have not been able to get a project off the ground. And a lot of it has to do, as I say, with the few property owners that actually own the buildings on Nason and Main Street. This is, as I said, just one project, the Mill and Main project, the revitalization of the mill. I think will have a drastic improvement in enhancing the downtown. You know, as their plan actually is going to be more inclusive of the downtown, be part of the downtown. I hope that we should all hope that the mill project is successful and fills up. We'll see hopefully folks that will spill out of the mill and shop in their downtown businesses that are already there, and hopefully will come. But it's a continuing conversation that we constantly have with the downtown. I personally do not think this project is going to kill the downtown. I think they're totally separate. In any case, the concepts that are being proposed at Parker Street, you know, are unique. If anything, we may even see, you know, depending on who's presenting the data or what you see, you may see an enhancement to the downtown. Could be quite the opposite of what you said. So some of these projects could draw people into town and into the downtown and spend money at the outdoor store that may never have been to town had there not been a Market 32. So I would say that, you know, as far as the board, as far as town administration, I mean, economic development is at the forefront. It's something we continuously talk about. We talk about it with our tax base. We talk about it, you know, when it comes, you know, to get more commercial property in there, and it's a daily conversation.
Hi, it's Barbara O'Brien again. Is there a projection on how many children may be moving, school-age children may be moving into the apartments and going to school? And can our school handle the influx?
Yeah, I think the current total with to projected is 34 students. Is that right? Yeah, 34 students. And yes, the school superintendent and school committee have gotten behind their numbers with school capacity, and you know, we don't anticipate this project you know, being detrimental to school capacity numbers. No.
I have a question, Rick Lefferts. I have a question about the contribution to the town. The fifth slide on the history of the property said that was $1 million financial contribution and that was still in effect. And then the last slide on the 2013-2016 comparison showed that there was, under financial contribution cash, that there was nothing in the 2013 and $1 million today. Can you?
That's correct. So there's been a determination by town council, agreement on by both parties, the developer and the town, that the original memorandum of agreement that was signed with the John Walters project is signed and still in effect. The development agreement that was negotiated in the 2013 project is dead. It doesn't have any weight because the article didn't move. So there was that particular development agreement at that time for the 2013 project actually contained no financial contribution to the town. In essence, it wasn't cash money. It was a process of a retrofit PK2 building, essentially. So the development agreement from the original development agreement is the one we're talking about that's still in effect and still carries. But so that's the minimum contribution the town would see as of today. Trish.
Kevin, you mentioned that there's a number of intersections that are planned for traffic mitigation in response to the development at 129 Parker Street. And I'm wondering if, in light of the development that's also happening at Mill and Main, including the proposed 300-unit residential area there, if there's been a holistic look at what the combined traffic impact will be for the town of those two developments, and what kind of mitigation measures would be appropriate given the combined traffic increase. And also if there's been any consideration or planning around traffic for the side streets in the Parker Street neighborhood that do not have a lighted intersection. So thinking particularly about Vose Hill and Field Street and B Street.
So Bob could speak specific to what they've done. They have done some preliminary traffic assessments. The real deep traffic mitigation and studies are done during during the site plan review with the planning board, where they really dive into the weeds. As far as the Mill and Main project, there hasn't been any studies that have taken place, and at this point we haven't even been discussing with the property owners of Saracen with regards to any additional housing. So we don't have any factual basis that there'll be 300 housing units there. We anticipate there will be a mixed use of some sort, so I would anticipate there will be additional residential units for that property at some point, but as the current phases and every conversation the town has had with them, we haven't discussed housing impact numbers. And being the size of the community it is, there's a lot of the intersections that this project will look to enhance is it. We don't have that many lit intersections, if you will, that have traffic signals. So this project would really enhance town-wide signal improvements in the intersections that would have an effect for other developments as well. Bob, I don't know if you have any more detail into some of the questions on the side street impact or mitigation.
Yeah. Trish, when we do if the zoning passes and we get to the next level of planning, typically what the traffic engineer will do is he'll study the proposed impact that our project will have, plus they look around town for other planned projects and add that impact into the calculations when they come out with the final report. And back in 2013, Mill and Main was basically an operating business, but now there's a new plan, so they will get the data from that and run those numbers through the analysis that they do on the project, which may or may not affect the numbers, depending on how that was calculated back in 2013. But they will definitely add that data into the report that comes out. Yeah, they'll make a projection based on today's occupancy and what the projected occupancy is, and then they'll run those numbers, through the analysis as well. That's typically how you do it when you in an area where you're seeing new development. You don't just isolate your project. You take more of a global view of around there, and and I'm sure they'll be looking at all the intersections in and around the project again, including Vose Hill and Field Street. To see what can be done on those as well.
Hello. Andy Moorline. I'm new to 123 Summer Street. I've observed the selectmen making these decisions, and I'm very impressed by their judicious oversight of this project. Mill & Main is on the table, so I have two questions. One is, how does Mill & Main, if it's successful, and your project, if it's successful, Robert, going to interact with each other in terms of drawing tenants? Is there a competition? Is there a chance that one will go belly up because the other doesn't? And I guess the other question for the selectmen is how that interaction is. And my understanding is that right now we're considering just changing the laws to allow, or the zoning to allow this to go forward. And am I correct in saying that special permitting is still required for each of these buildings? Or how does a special permitting program move forward?
Thank you. I'll answer the Mill & Main portion first. They're really two separate projects. The tenants that would come to this project here are not tenants that are going into a downtown area. We've met with the people from Mill & Main. We're excited to see their project get developed because we think it's going to help our project, and they're excited to see our project get developed because it's going to help them attract tenants to downtown Maynard. Years ago, when that project was first developed in the early 2000s, you had high-tech companies moving into downtown Maynard and it filled up that complex. Now, those companies all want to be into the cities where amenities are, so it's hard to attract those companies to come out to the suburbs. They want to be at a major highway, and they want amenities close by for their employees, because that's what the employee of today wants. Whereas years ago, they all moved out of the city into the suburbs. The reverse is happening today. So having a project like 129 Parker Street is going to help Mill & Main get those commercial tenants into that building and fill that space there. It's very difficult to get tenants today in the high-tech medical industry to come to a location like Maynard without amenities. They really want the amenities today. So that's going to help them, and they're going to help us because they're going to bring new customers, which are going to, utilize the businesses in our project. So they really work together, the two projects. We don't compete. The retail tenants that are going to go to that project are different than the retail tenants that come to this project. The tenants we're looking at are more national type companies, and they want to be in these these type of projects. They want to be next to a grocery store, and they won't typically go into a downtown area. But that said, the downtown is going to benefit from a project like this and a project like Mill & Main. If you look at other towns, such as Northborough Crossing or Hudson, by having these developments and having the residents stay close to the town, it's improved the downtown in these towns. If you go back to Hudson 10 or 15 years ago, you had a lot of empty storefronts. Those are all filling up again. If you go to Northborough downtown 10 or 15 years ago, a lot of vacancy. They've all filled up, and there's actually new construction going on. The study that was done back in 2006, 2007 related to this project, the RKG study, said 68 cents of every retail dollar that Maynard residents are spending is being spent outside of Maynard. By having this project developed and people staying in Maynard, it's more likely they're going to go downtown and use the businesses downtown as well, in addition to our project. What was your the next question?
I was curious how about the special permit.
Yeah, okay, exactly, yeah.
What's going to happen if we pass this or don't pass this?
It's a first step in a long process. So the first step is you need the zoning in place to be able to do what you want to do. So assuming if the zoning was passed, the next step is town meeting needs to approve a concept plan. And that's basically a site plan that we would develop that would show what we wanted to build on the site, the number of buildings, the approximate location of the buildings, the approximate use of what's going to go in those buildings, the size of the buildings. So nothing else can happen until town meeting meets again and approves what they call a concept plan for the project. And we can't do that until we have the zoning in place. We can't bring a concept plan that doesn't have the zoning to back it up. Then, if that passes, the next step is the formal planning board process. There are some uses which are by right uses on the property, which we would need site plan approval for. For instance, a grocery store I believe, is a by right use, in the MBOD. There's a lot of uses which are special permit uses. So the planning board would have to, issue permits both for the by right and the special permit uses. And that's the next step of the process, really, before construction could begin. So this is just really the start of the process. And there's numerous other stops along the way that's, before we could actually put a shovel in the ground.
If I could, just to add to that, and I know if Special Counsel Attorney Witten was here, he'd say there's a lot of belt and suspenders that are built into this project. You have the zoning, the MBOD zoning, you have the memorandum of agreement, and then ultimately you have the planning board with special permit and site plan review. So there's a lot of protection in place for the town to get a project that it wants. And he always uses that term, belts and suspenders. So there's a lot of that here, and it comes down to really all three of those, not just the zoning change or the memorandum of agreement. There's all of those that apply. Sorry. Yes.
Yeah.
Hello, I'm over here.
Where are we?
Wait. I'm Mariah Freeman. I live on Summit Street. I've lived in Maynard for about 14 years, and I'm about to retire, and I'd really like to live in Maynard after I retire. So I'm really excited about the senior independent living complex that is part of this. But in the first part of the presentation, I also noticed a mention of an assisted living and a continuum of care part of this plan. Is that in the plan, or is that not in the plan? Is that for way in the future?
Yeah.
We have the gentleman from Hawthorne, is this Bob McDonald? McCarthy? I get the Mac screwed up, sorry. So Bob McCarthy, he's from the Hawthorne Group, and they're the company that's going to, would handle the building of the operation and management of the proposed senior living facility.
Like you said, my name is Bob McCarthy. I'm from Hawthorne Retirement Group, and we would have the independent living retirement community there. It would not be an assisted living community, so what was on the screen there would not apply to us. But we have some retirement communities. We have 4 currently here in the Massachusetts area, with a 5th one being constructed currently, and then this is one that's proposed. So ours is strictly independent living, not an assisted living or continuing care facility.
It's just a definition within the MBOD on how, what's allowed there, within the definition. And particularly because of this project, we have actually pulled out and highlighted more of a focus on what the continuing care is. But we've tried to break out the definitions for assisted living, independent living, and a continuum care. That's why you see that there. But as he presented, there's no medical assisted living or concept with this particular sort of age-in-place suite model that they provide. I will say that there's been several residents like yourself and folks that I'm familiar with that have actually moved out of town because these aren't here, and I've heard from them saying, if Maynard would build one of these, I'd be a Maynard resident again. And there's several of those stories that they don't need the medical assistance, at least not this stage in their life, but they're looking for a more affordable downsize option, which currently we have limited of that. And both the residential component and the continuum care would provide for solutions for those folks that are in exactly your circumstance.
Well, Mr. McCarthy is on the stage because my question or comment is about the same type of thing too. That many of us would like to stay in town, ready to downsize, but not ready to move into small suites with partial kitchens and no laundry facilities. I was speaking to, because I was on your website and got some information about your other facilities, and your Colonial Gardens community in Beverly does have another living option, which you call cottages, and they're 2-bedroom, 2-bath, full kitchen, laundry, and a garage, which in New England is a very nice amenity. And when I was speaking to your representative there, she said that there is a long waiting list for the cottages. So I would presume that there's a long waiting list because that's what people want. So maybe you might consider putting that type of an option in your design plan here, because I think it's probably more, yeah, I see a lot of people nodding their heads. We're young enough to really still want to cook.
No, I understand, and that's a great point. Our community up in Beverly, it's a 173-unit community, 18 cottages. We have a waiting list for the entire community, not just the cottages, but also for our 1 2-bedroom and studio apartments. So we have it's a great point that obviously cottages are demand, but we also have other communities that we don't have cottages at. The one in Westboro, the one in Franklin, and the one in Tewksbury are just our main communities with the studio 1s and 2s. We do also have garages available on our community that the residents can also rent as well. So if they choose to have a garage, we do have some that are available.
I have a question. Okay. Ed Mullen, Yancey Circle. I have not changed my view on this in 3 years. I wrote an article in the paper 3 years ago supporting this project. I would like to talk to you about I applaud the people who get into the nitty-gritty, but I would like to talk about 3 areas that I am in support of. First of all, let's talk eyesore versus beautification. Now, we can drive by Parker Street. I've been for 15 years, and we've been looking at dilapidated buildings and weeds. And as far as I'm concerned, this project here, the diagrams will beautify that place and make Maynard more attractive. The second thing I would like to talk to you about is taxes. 2 years ago, I was on the school committee, and we were mandated to cut $500,000 from the school budget. You just go and try that. Cut this and cut that, and we're going to cut sports and cut music. And we finally got to the bottom line and figured it out. But with $500,000 or $1 million coming in each year, that's going to benefit the tax base of Maynard. There isn't any question. And the third thing, I concur with the presentation, is that this will make Maynard, as it always is, a welcoming community. That those stores and those people up in that area of 129 Parker Street, in my opinion, will filter down, will filter back into the downtown. Thank you.
Neil Blanchard, 13 Chandler Street. I had this question at the town meeting, and I noticed in the presentation you had a number of about $35,000 or $38,000 for water system improvement. I wonder if there's an overall plan for water use and for recharge off the site. It's near a couple of the town wells, and water is a finite resource, and it's the most important resource that the town provides. So I want to make sure that we have the overall picture of use and then water getting back into the ground so that it isn't overly taxing our finite resource, so the 7 wells that we have. Thank you.
So, good question. I say tonight that really the focus is on zoning. We'll say that certainly as we get into site plan review, those are absolutely the priorities. Particularly with the development agreement is where we pull out what type of consultants are we going to be looking at, what type of third-party reviewers, engineers, and utilities is one of those things. So they will take a more in-depth look, not at this stage, but when we get to that stage as far as capacity issues, et cetera. The money, the dollar amount you reference is again, that one-time mitigation improvement for both combined water and sewer, that came up several years ago, whether they came up with that figure far. It was still what is in effect today. So yeah, I think the answer is we've looked at it sort of periphery, with capacity. Certainly we don't think that the capacity is an issue for this and the other projects that are going on in town. We're exploring other, water resource availability that's available to the town, additional wells and, other water areas that we could divert back to. That's a continuous thing that we're doing just to protect the town with, second and third options. But as far as I said, the details and analysis of all that will be done with our third-party review. If you want to add anything else to that, Bob.
No, but like Kevin said, once we actually get into the site plan process, and if the concept plan passed and the zoning passed, the regulations today are very, very extensive as far as where the water has to go. Like I said, most of it today is going under the parking lots in areas and then going back into the ground. And the majority of the projects that we're doing, as well as we've got the pond on site, which is going to get reworked, and some of the water is going to go into that, and possibly another, pond on the site as well, as far as that goes.
Hey, quick note, I'm Terrence Donovan, Acton Street. I've been a resident for 18 years in Maine with my wife and children as well. I'm really pleased to see everybody here tonight. I'm also fortunate enough to be elected member of the Board of Selectmen as well. And I just want to reiterate what it is we're trying to get across tonight. And I'm really pleased with the amount of turnout we have. It's way more than we expected 4 days before Christmas, so thank you for that. Kevin harkened back a couple times to it's a process that's going on right here. This is really step one to get going. So as much as detail that we want to get out of here, there's going to be some gaps in knowledge, and for that we apologize, but that's just part of the process. We're trying to move forward into the next step, which is getting the NBOD zoning change based on the long work the ad hoc committee did, the Board of Selectmen, previous to myself being on the board, have done, and a lot of townspeople, who I see plenty of them in there, who've been to all the town meetings and all the Board of Selectmen meetings. So it's, as much as we want to answer every question we can, but we're going to have difficulty, which we're just not at the point to answer those questions yet. That will come with memorandum of agreement. It will come with site plan as well. But this is just step one. So just try to keep that in mind as you're asking your questions. And when I don't want you to be disgruntled or upset that you're not getting your answers. It's not because we're being evasive. We're still learning a lot of what we have to do. But step one is really to get the next change through in zoning that we all agree may happen. And that's really just what I want to say as a selectman, as also as a resident who was in favor of the project. So thank you.
Thanks, Terrence.
Yeah, up here. Mark DeCastro on Cutting. A question for the changes on the height of the buildings. I guess it's a two-part question. One, is that only increasing within this particular development? And two, to the developers, is there any way you can give a visual, float a balloon, do something so that we can see, especially with the setbacks, where the tops of these buildings might be? I think it was tried on a windy day, I think I heard, and wasn't too successful. Maybe something a little more long-term so people can get a visual of exactly what it would look like.
Yeah, we'd be happy to do that again, hopefully on a less windy day. And again, that's only affecting the two buildings that would be at the furthest point in the back of the property, over 1,000 feet off Parker Street. And again, excuse me?
That is a residential neighborhood already back there, though, right?
Yeah, a lot further back than where the neighborhood is. And again, that's only applies to the MBOD district. That's not a change that's being proposed for any other district other than the MBOD.
Yeah, the underlying zoning, the industrial zone, is a 40-foot max. So that would be the same in all industrial zone areas within town. That's not changing.
Yes.
Fred Williams, I would request that the town put up on a picture, on a graphic on the appropriate website, where the intersections are. You you specified the street intersections, but I think people going to the special town meeting really need to know where the 6 additional traffic mitigation or stoplights will be, because I think that's been perhaps a major hang-up with the past plan.
Easy enough. We can provide that. Bill?
If I can just add to recommendations for graphics at town meeting, if you can also have one of the show where the extra height will be, the little back corner of the lot, it'll be easier for people to understand.
Thank you.
Sandra Natick, I live in Apple Ridge. I've got 2 questions. On your first page in the current memorandum of agreement, the last item, it says public access to hiking trails. To what hiking trails will there be public access to? Is it the Asbeth Valley Refuge? And my second question is, it appears from the number of, from the prospective tenants that the only liquor license might be to Applebee's?
What was that on your second question?
The liquor license. Will the only liquor license be to Applebee's? I assume Applebee's sell, I haven't been there a long time. I assume they serve liquor.
We haven't issued any liquor licenses for anything in the project. The liquor licenses come at a totally different time and place. In order to apply for a liquor license, you need a building plan, a seating plan. You need you need to have a manager for the facility. There's a lot of different things that go anywhere before you get even close to a liquor license. So for us to even guess at who would apply or receive a liquor license for this project at this point is I think years off.
I think what that's referring to is, back one. On the rear portion of the property where the 400,000 square foot building sat, there's a series of, I guess, trails that go down to a pond down there that I think Digital had put in years ago on that property. Whether those are going to be able to be used or not, I'm not sure, because there is an issue with turtles migrating onto our property from the wildlife refuge next door, and we've had numerous meetings with them, and they're looking for us to put some restrictions on that land. So I'm not sure that, whether that's going to be available or not back there yet. But I think those are the trails that were referred to in the original agreement. If you walk back there in that area that's set to the back left of the property, there's some nice trails down there. You can walk all down there. It's pretty nice.
Back to the zoning changes. I'm trying to compare and contrast this with the zoning changes for Mill and Main. I know they're looking to reduce the minimum square footage for food and retail establishments. Can you compare their square footage goals for those establishments with the square footage for retail and food establishments here at Parker Street?
Yeah, I can speak to that. As Bob alluded to earlier, a lot of what they're trying to attract is the national larger groups that don't necessarily want to be downtown. Mill and Main's focus now is the current zoning that's in the healthcare industrial, the HCI, as well as the memorandum of agreement that we have with that property, have those high minimums because of the prior property owner, and what they were looking to do is a different vision and a different concept for the mill building. The new owners are looking to change those minimums because they want to provide restaurants and retail that complement the downtown better than 10,000 or more square foot that might essentially attract a big box type of tenant. They're looking for more of a boutique type style sort of mom and pop sort of boutique things that would better complement not only Maynard and the community, but the downtown as a whole. And they're not looking for, the average tenant that's going to need more than 5,000 square feet. So that's why that request is there. And as Bob said, I think some of the tenants that they're proposing are looking at, larger square footage space. Not all of them, but certainly an Applebee's, for instance. As a whole, like the total retail? The total retail max, is that what you're asking?
No, for a given enterprise, for a given store.
Oh, I don't know.
I think, saying restaurants, that we're talking with at the site, I think you'd see anywhere from 2,000 to 7,000 square feet typically. Sort of the fast casual ones are in the smaller end, and then your full-service restaurants would be sort of at the higher end of the scale. I think, the problem they have in there now is you've got these, 10,000-foot minimum. 10,000-foot tenants, they want to be in this type of site, not, in the downtown sites. They're trying to get the smaller tenants. So most of our tenants tend to be of the bigger size, and most of the tenants I think you'll see going in that project are the smaller size. You have the brewery, which is a bigger type tenant. But I think for the most part, the tenants that they're going to attract tend to be the smaller tenants. The grocery store, they're looking at 68,000 square feet. The hardware store, 14,000 square feet. The pet store, 10,000 square feet. There's a lot in the 5,000 to 10,000 square foot. The health facility, that's about 18,000 square feet. So we've got, the smaller, personal service type tenants. They're going to be in the 1,500 to 2,500 square foot range. The urgent care medical center, that's going to be 3,400 square feet. So it's really from one end of the spectrum to the other, that we're going to see there.
So I'm assuming that one of the town's goals is to not fall further behind on our affordable housing. So I'm wondering if we have some sort of conclusion from Attorney Witten that the suites would not count as housing units. I noticed in the photo that they did have a microwave cooking device as well as a refrigerator.
Yeah, so the answer to that is Attorney Witten's position is that it would affect the housing in the 10-year census. So when they do the next 10-year census, that would get captured, as that would negatively affect our affordable housing number. That's his opinion of that. That those would count towards.
So they will count as housing units?
Yes.
So not requiring 10% there, the affordable will put us behind again, the more?
Yeah, essentially those will count towards that. Yes, the type of project that's there, it doesn't allow for that, but yeah, that's accurate. Yes, correct. Yeah, so yeah, it's the numerator number that essentially, gets updated at that. But anything that we bring online, we get credit for within our HCI. We get that credit immediately. We don't wait for the 10-year census on getting the actual affordable units on to the denominator end.
A I think the earliest you'd probably see anything happen there would be the end of 2016. There's just a lot of things that have to happen before you get to that point. No, I think you'd be talking a multiple year build out, probably 2 to 3 years realistically.
In the previous overlay, we had part of the request was to be able to build within, I think it was like 30 feet of the wetlands, whereas the standard setback is 100. Are we going to adhere, do we have actual numbers for setbacks in this particular proposal of the zoning board? And then in terms of wetland setbacks, are we going to hold to the 100 feet? It just felt like there was a lot going in the previous proposal, and this time I just want to get a feel for where that is. Whether we're building on every last square foot, or are we going to be able to have standard setbacks from wetlands?
Yeah, I think in the previous MBOD, I think what we were looking to change were the buffer zones, and not the wetlands buffer zones, but the setbacks from the property lines. So that was in the MBOD, because the wetland regulations are what they are. We can't change those. We haven't got to that, the level of plan yet where we've defined where every building is definitely going. I would say for the most part, we're going to be outside of the 100-foot buffer zone. If we're going to be into it at 1 or 2 places, I'm not sure yet, because that has not been designed yet. But we're going to try, as we always do, to stay as far away from that as possible, because the closer you get, it just creates more regulations that we got to deal with as well, as far as that goes.
Well, this is essentially its own zone, right? So I'm just wondering about the general rules for setbacks.
Yeah, only for zoning, not for conservation. Conservation, yeah, we're not looking to change any of the regulations for that. Yep.
Trish?
My question is for the Board of Selectmen. Knowing that the last proposed zoning change was overwhelmingly defeated by the town, I'm wondering if you could highlight some of the reasons that you are backing this proposal. When I look at it, I see about a 5% reduction from the defeated proposal, a 5% reduction in retail space. I see a reduction in number of apartments, but that is offset by the number of units in the continuing care facility. So what aspects of this zoning change seem substantively different to you that you feel that this is something that the town should be endorsing?
Most of the 5 of us that are on the board right now that have negotiated a lot of these issues in the past year and a half, we're not part of the previous boards that did these things and agreed to certain things. So when we started negotiating and discussing this in earnest almost 18 months ago, we followed the ad hoc committee's recommendations. We followed the recommendations of several of the visioning sessions, and Selectman Gavin has been, he's been holding us to a lot of those types of things, while some of us have, talked about different changes. And so there's been some debate among ourselves. There's been a lot of negotiation with the Capital Group, with ourselves, and Kevin and Andrew Scribner McLean in our meetings about every little, each and every item. So we've negotiated units, heights. We've negotiated all the issues that are going to come before the town and need special permits, which are the restaurants, the drive-throughs. All those things that are discussed will all be by special permit and negotiated as we go forward again. So with this, we're just looking, these are not, changes that are definitively going to take place. These are just changes that we're looking at to allow for the possibility of X, Y, and Z. So, I mean, to me, we negotiated every little piece, and some pieces I didn't like, and we didn't like as a board. So we changed them lower. Some things we added to because we were given assurances, and we, contractually will now have additional affordable units where they weren't before. In particular, the senior living option was never there before, but through the town and through the ad hoc committee and some of the sessions that we talked about earlier, people asked for that. So that's something we again, we talked to Capital Group. They went out, they saw the Hawthorne people, and they came in and made a presentation. The presentation they made was well received, and then we discussed it among ourselves again, and we determined we thought it was a good idea for the town to proceed with that piece of the project. So all these pieces have been, I can't point to any one thing that makes me think, wow, this is a good project, but I do think that it's a good project for the town. I think it's reasonable. I don't see anything within it that's unreasonable. I don't know that anybody else does, and if the other four selectmen here tonight, and I'll let them answer the question for themselves, but that's how we came to where we are today, because we have followed what the ad hoc committee has created and given us to follow as a set of guidelines, and we followed the visiting sessions as well, the results of the visiting sessions.
Thanks, Chris. My name is David Gavin, also a member of the Board of Selectmen. Can everyone hear me okay? Many of you know that I was on the board at the time of the last town meeting vote. And I can assure you, and many of the people in this room understand, that I have lived this project for the last 3.5 years, literally, every other Tuesday. My wife can attest to it, my children can attest to it. So as we move forward with this, there were essential aspects of it that led me to believe that most importantly, the process that has been followed to get to where we are tonight has been drastically different than what we observed the last time around. First off, there were these visiting sessions that Chris has mentioned repeatedly that were extremely important to where we are tonight. We listened to the people. We listened to the ideas always with one goal in mind. What will get us to pass this at town meeting? What can people support at town meeting? So we listened to the visioning sessions, and those groups provided us, and it was hundreds of people when you combine the visiting sessions, provided us with insight. We then created the ad hoc committee that was made up of a number of people that were appointed by the board that had open meetings. Every single meeting was open to the public. And there was back and forth. There was a lot of debate. There's members of that committee that are here this evening. Back and forth debate with a final report that came out that said, here's a guide map to what we can support and what the community can support based upon that. On top of that, we now have created a vision through zoning. And again, the zoning doesn't create a project. The zoning gives a roadmap to the project and says, here's the maximum things that you can do, and here's what you can do to a maximum. Beyond that, and even perhaps most importantly to the community, is the last proposal, which I opposed, to be quite frank, and many of you probably understand that, but the town was getting zero. The town was getting a building in the back of the project that it was in disrepair, we didn't need, and was going to cost us money at the end. We start off tonight with this proposal. We've already got $100,000 of this money, so we're looking at $900,000 that wasn't coming to us before that we're now getting. There's also other monetary incentives that are built into this that were not there before, including those 7 intersection upgrades. And perhaps as we get further along in the process and get into site plan review, we will find that indeed there might be other intersections in the community that we may have to raise some issues about and talk about. This isn't done yet, but I'm happy with where we're at. I'm happy that we've worked it through. This is Maynard's project, something that I think we can be proud of, not something that will make us regret ourselves. Because remember, zoning is forever. So when we create a zoning article and create zoning, this is something that is going to last forever. So we want to make sure we're proud of it, and I'm pretty proud of what we've come to, and it's been a lot of hard work with a lot of help from a lot of people. So that's my comment.
Good. Any of you guys want to? Okay. If I could, not to speak for the selectmen, just one thing to note, the project itself is a smaller scale project than what we previously saw. It's about 90,000 square feet or so less retail, it's about a 28% reduction, and the other project was 250 units down to 175 on the residential end, it's about a 30% reduction. And I think Selectman Gavin alluded to it, a lot of what didn't happen before that has happened this time is consensus, and the board negotiated every little piece of where we're at today individually to by consensus among the board and unanimous support. And one of those biggest things is there never was a consensus with the prior board as to particularly the residential units and the 250 number that was put forward. So that was a big monumental win that the board was successfully able to come to a unanimous vote on and set, and that did set the stage. So I think those are the biggest differences as well. And I think Selectmen Gavin and Crenshaw hit on that. Yeah, I was looking at Bill De Silva, the other selectman. Did I say Crenshaw?
Do that again?
Yeah.
So does anybody else
That
have
was
more
planning board.
questions? No more questions? Oh.
The zoning change that's being considered here, if that passes, but then this development does not get approved, the zoning moves forward, right? The zoning change gets approved, and then that's kind of done, right? So that's set in stone. So if this doesn't move forward, then this development doesn't move forward, is the town then tied to any particular potential development going forward? Like, are we kind of tying ourselves to something that, tying our hands essentially if we do in fact approve the zoning but then don't approve this particular development? And are there any other developments planned in town that will potentially take advantage of this zoning change? Like anything that's anyone who's kind of waiting in the wings, hoping that this zoning change gets approved for any other kind of developments potentially happening in town. Thanks.
No. So the answer, I'll take the last one first because that's easy. No, there isn't any other projects that are out there that the NBOD would be utilized for. I mean, Maynard is, as obviously you know, is pretty built out, densely populated. There's revitalization, and we can all sit here and identify potential locations that could even fit into this realm. With regard to the zoning change, yeah, the zoning change would be changed aside from whether or not the concept plan is approved or not. But it also would be zoning that that the town wants. We would have an NBOD that the zoning is something that the town. There's the biggest thing with this NBOD is that it's not because what these guys put in front of us. It's as been mentioned several times. It's the visioning, charrettes. It's the public sessions, and the zoning uses have been updated to allow for those things, which currently are not. Many residents have expressed an interest in, having health care as an option out there, some sort of health care facilities. Well, currently, we can't have that. So I think at the end of the day, we're left with an NBOD that, is something that it's good for the town in that sense that, it's the ultimate project is something that the town, is wanted. I don't know if, Bob, if you want to say any more to that.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very good question. I think the whole reason that we're standing here today is back in 2006, when the initial NBOD was crafted, I think it was almost crafted around a concept plan. It was crafted around the plan that the developer wanted to do. And it was very, very limited as far as the uses allowed on the site. And then once that plan sort of, didn't go forward, you were left with zoning that really didn't leave a lot of options to go forward. you know, and a lot of uses that people wanted to see, again, like senior housing, medical, those were not uses allowed under the previous MBOD. So I think the article as it's being brought forward is, it's more generic zoning. It's zoning that allows, whether it's us or, you know, somebody else down the road, to bring a concept plan forward for the town's consideration without having to go back again and rechange the zoning again because, you know, they want to do something else. I think it was pretty well thought out. You know, a lot of the uses that weren't previously there are included, even uses that we have no intention on using under, at this point, but, you know, in the future, you know, could be utilized. And it'll just allow the, you know, the project to be, you know, hopefully developed in the near future.
Sandra Natick, Apple Ridge again. Has there been a study of how this project will affect our taxes? Because I think I've read in the Acton Beacon or someplace else that Maynard already has one of the highest tax rates per unit, per dollar of assessment. Not total, but per dollar of assessment.
There's definitely been some studies and some discussion about the tax benefit to the town, you know, how that ends up affecting the tax rate eventually. You know, if everything is, all things being equal, at some point it would, you know, lead to a lower tax rate if things, you know, come as we expect them to come through the project. But it's hard to say how it's going to affect your tax rate, but there is definitely going to be a tax benefit in dollars to the town.
Yeah, I mean, it's been referenced before, and it's available on the town's website as well, under this project specific, but the RKG report shows the fiscal impact based on this project, and looks at the gross revenue and the town's costs with a net revenue. That was that $766,000 net revenue number. Tying that into, I mean, a lot of the drivers of that is the town's budget, you know, how much the budget increases, and being a municipality, we're bound by Prop 2.5, et cetera, but a lot of it comes down to the financial policies of the, you know, of the town and the Board of Selectmen and what they set for parameters, and if some of that, which, you know, this year when we set the tax rate, we didn't use all of our allowable new growth that was on the table that was allowed. So a lot of it depends on, you know, the policies there and that are in place from a financial standpoint, and you know, your budget increase drivers are going to increase the overall tax rate. So, but there's absolutely a very net positive, good revenue stream for the town that currently doesn't exist. Yes.
It's always a goal, you know. To put it on the backs of this group is not necessarily fair, but of course it's always a goal. I mean, that's a whole nother 3-night lesson for all of us. But you know, the most important thing for everybody in the room and everybody in town to realize is that, you know, we've negotiated with the Capital Group for a year and a half at least, you know, monthly, weekly. In some weeks it's daily that we've negotiated with these guys. But, and as cordial as the negotiations are, and as nice of a guy as Bob is, our interest is still the town's interest and your interest. It's not my interest. I have no interest, you know, other than to see something come to town that's going to benefit the town and help us. And then we get through this process. If we get through this process and this is successful, there's another series of processes. And the planning board have your best interests and our best interests in heart and in mind. So that's the process. Are we going to be able to lower the taxes for you guys? I don't know. There's about 25 people coming on. They're debating every couple of weeks to tell you what they're going to do when they're not being stupid. But I don't know that we're going to do that. But we try and we discuss it every year and every tax
We just
season,
did.
so.
The residential tax rate went down over $1. The residential tax rate went down over $1. So that doesn't mean your bill's gone down, but your rate has gone down.
It's easy to listen to Bob say it, but I've actually got in my car and gone to these places. I've been to Market 32. I've been to a few of the Hawthorne places on my own, just, look around, walk around. And they're nice places. They're not, it's easy to paint a picture and show you guys a picture, but you don't know that that's what's coming to Maynard. So if you go to these places and you want to check out Market 32, it's right on 146 in Sutton. Right on Route 20 is the other facility in Westboro that they've spoken about a few times. They're nice places, and without going to do that, I don't think I would personally, and not that I wouldn't endorse it, but it makes me all the more willing to say, yeah, this is right, and I think it's right for Maynard. If you want to go look at these places, we have the addresses because I have them, and they're worth the trip. For anyone that questions, what the potential is to come to town, I think it's worth a 20-minute ride in either direction to see the Hawthorne facilities, to see this grocery store. It's a concept store that's kind of it's a little bit of a mix, and I work in the grocery industry, so I know groceries a little bit, and so it's a mix between a Whole Foods concept and a Wegmans concept, a little smaller than the Wegmans, a little bigger than Whole Foods, but the product lines and those type of things on the periphery of the store, where your fresh foods and your deli and your meats and all that stuff are, will tend to go towards the whole food model, and the rest of the stuff in the middle is going to go to the staples, some of your paper towels, your Kleenex, all that type of stuff, and cereals and all that's going to be in the middle. But that other stuff on the outside of the store is really what sets this concept store apart. And then when you go to the Hawthorne facility on Route 20, you're just going to see a nice, clean, well-kept facility. So it's worth the ride to check some of these places out. It'd be nice.
I think we have another question up top.
My question is, I'm concerned about the 7 points of access. If you look at the Wayland Town Commons, and I don't know if you've been over there, the new Wayland Center with the grocery store and all that, it's beautifully done. There's 2 points in and out. And if you go further up Route 20 into Sudbury, you get to Sudbury Farms and you get into a nightmare of traffic because there's every 25 feet, there's a new driveway that you can come out onto the road. I don't want to become Route 20 in Sudbury.
We are not going to have 7 entrances to this facility. We're going to have 1 entrance to this facility that goes out onto 27. Mm-hmm. As of right now, there's 1 entrance planned. The 7 intersections are intersections in and around the project that will be improved. Sight lines, those type of things, lighting, those things will be improved. But there's only going to be 1 access point for this project. We won't become Route 20. I agree with you that that's a nice project, but we won't become that.
Yeah, that's been the biggest one of the biggest hurdles for this project, is we don't have the luxury of having, Route 27 and 20 with site access on both locations. But we're all well aware of that, so I think, and as is the planning board, and a lot of the focus when it comes time to site plan review will be the internal traffic pattern, internal traffic control, and mitigations. I know Bob's heard it endlessly about internal traffic. But that, yeah, it's only one way in and out.
Anyone else? All right, well, if there are no more questions, from the, on behalf of the Board of Selectmen, Capital Group, Kevin, and the rest of Town Hall, thank you guys all for coming out. We appreciate it. We appreciate this number of people. This is more than we get for town meetings some years, to be perfectly honest. But,
Yeah, and just to follow up on Chris, I'd like to make a point and thank WAVM. That was tough pulling this together with limited notice, so thank you to them. Certainly recognizing a holiday week, Christmas week, them accommodating that is excellent. So thanks again.